So, think of a cosmic vending machine.
Okay, a vending machine.
Yeah, you walk right up to it, and you put in your coin.
Right.
Now, maybe that coin is a big check you wrote to a local charity.
Or, maybe it's just an hour of volunteering on your Saturday off.
Precisely. Or maybe your coin is just biting your tongue and walking away when you desperately wanted to yell at a coworker who took credit for your project.
Oh, yeah, that's a tough one.
Right, but you put your moral coin in the slot, you press the button, and you just stand there, waiting.
Waiting for the payout.
Yeah, what are you anticipating? You are anticipating the machine to drop a blessing down to the bottom tray. You want a receipt for your moral sweat.
That is such a human reaction. We want the receipt.
We really do. Human beings assume that if we do the right thing, the universe, or God himself, is legally obligated to hand us a proportional reward.
Yes, a strict transaction.
Well, welcome to Reformed Thinking.
It is great to be here.
We have a massive stack of source material for you today, including some brilliant historical and cultural research by scholar Kenneth Bailey.
Yeah, his work is incredible.
It really is. And we're pairing that alongside several theological essays on the Gospel of Matthew.
Which is going to be a fascinating deep dive.
Definitely. Our goal for you today is to look closely at a text that takes a sledgehammer to that cosmic vending machine mentality.
A complete sledgehammer.
We're looking at Matthew chapter 20, verses 1 through 16. Now, if you grew up in or around the church, you have probably heard this called the parable of the workers in the vineyard.
Right. That's the standard heading in most Bibles.
But our source material makes a compelling argument that this title, well, it gives away the ending and ruins the core focus.
Yeah, it shifts our attention to the sweat of the laborers.
And the spotlight should be fixed squarely on the master. So we're going to frame it the way our sources do. We're calling it the parable of the compassionate employer.
I love that title. It changes the whole vibe.
Our mission for this deep dive into the sources is to shatter that natural human instinct to view God through a transactional, legalistic lens.
Because we all do it.
We do. By examining the rigorous historical Middle Eastern cultural context of this text, we want to show you the shocking, uncalculated nature of divine grace.
And that vending machine analogy you used, it hits the nail on the head because that is the default setting of the human heart.
It really is, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Going all the way back to the Garden of Eden, humanity has been obsessed with this idea of a covenant of works.
Which is the idea that we can earn it.
Yeah, it's the theological concept that we can present a ledger of our own righteousness to the Creator and demand a payout based on strict mathematical equity.
Like you do this, you get that.
Precisely. But Jesus engineered this specific parable to break that mindset into pieces.
He knew exactly what he was doing.
He stepped into a world obsessed with merit and status to demonstrate that true justice in the kingdom of heaven is not a calculation of human sweat equity. It is the magnificent exercise of sovereign grace given to people who are totally undeserving.
Wow. And when you strip away our modern Western assumptions and view this story through the eyes of a first-century Middle Eastern listener, the actions of the landowner here are, well, they're not just unusual.
No, they are a cultural scandal.
A cultural scandal. Let's unpack that, because to grasp why our vending machine mindset fails so spectacularly here, you have to look at the raw socioeconomic reality of the ancient Near East.
You really have to understand the dirt and the dust of it all.
Yeah, we have to look at who these workers actually were in the context of first-century Judea. I mean, if you read this text today, you might picture a modern construction site.
Or guys standing outside a home improvement store.
Right, or like a temporary staffing agency. But the social hierarchy was entirely different back then.
Completely different.
And to get the full impact, we need to understand the absolute bottom of that ladder.
Well, the agrarian hierarchy of the ancient Near East was brutal. I mean, to make sense of this narrative, the sources draw a sharp line between two classes of laborers.
Okay, lay that out for us.
On one hand, you had domestic slaves, and obviously slavery is an atrocious institution.
Right, goes without saying.
But purely from an economic standpoint in that era, a domestic slave called a douloi in Greek was considered a capital investment by the master of the estate.
So they were property and asset.
Yes. And because they were an investment, the master had a vested interest in keeping them alive and healthy.
That makes sense.
They had a guaranteed roof over their heads, they had consistent food, and basic medical care.
So even though they were enslaved, they had a baseline of security.
Yes, economic security. But then on the other hand, you had the day laborers, The ergatai.
Day laborers, where did they fit in?
These men were at the absolute, undisputed bottom of the socioeconomic ladder. They had zero safety net.
None at all.
None. They did not own land. They had no specialized trade to fall back on. They were the expendable, marginalized underclass.
Wow.
If a day laborer did not find work on a Tuesday, his family literally did not eat on Tuesday night.
That raises the stakes of this story considerably. I mean, it's life or death every single morning.
Every single morning.
So picture the marketplace. The text says the master goes to the public square, the agora at dawn. What does that scene actually look like?
Well, there is a temptation for a modern reader to picture men standing around in a market and assume they're just lazy.
Yeah, just leaning against a wall, dragging their feet, waiting for a handout.
But it is the complete opposite of lazy. The scene at the marketplace at dawn is one of intense, quiet desperation. Kenneth Bailey actually observed contemporary market customs near the Damascus Gate in East Jerusalem to shed light on this dynamic.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah, even in modern times, unemployed laborers gather at the crack of dawn, they stand in the dust, and when an employer's van pulls up, they do not sit back.
I imagine they swarm it.
They stand at attention, they rush forward, they compete fiercely to be noticed.
Because their kids are hungry.
Precisely. Every hour that ticks by increases the terrifying prospect of going home empty-handed.
I can't even imagine the stress.
To be left standing in the marketplace as the sun climbs higher in the sky is a psychological torment.
Yeah, because everybody sees you.
Exactly. I mean, yes, it means enduring the dismissive, pitying glances of people who have stable incomes walking past you all day long.
Wow.
It means facing the very real, impending reality of walking back to your house in the dark, opening the door, and looking into the hungry eyes of your wife and children.
Knowing you failed to provide.
Yes. Knowing you failed.
And what were they hoping to earn? The text talks about a denarius.
The denarius, yes.
Today, we might brush past that word
Yeah.
or, just think of it as a generic coin. But that coin had a very specific purchasing power, right?
Oh, it was highly specific. The denarius was the standard, non-negotiable living wage.
So it wasn't a coin you saved up to buy luxury goods.
No, or put in a retirement account. It represented the precise amount of money required to purchase bread, oil, and basic survival necessities for one family for 24 hours.
24 hours. So it was quite literally a day's life.
A day's life.
Man. So into this incredibly tense, high-stakes environment walks the central figure of our story, the master of the house. The oikodespotos.
The master in the house, yes.
The source material points out that his behavior from the very first verse is completely unprecedented for a man of his standing.
It was a massive breach of social decorum.
Really? Why is that?
Well, in that culture, wealthy landowners were essentially gentlemen farmers. They fiercely guarded their social dignity.
Okay.
A man of that wealth and status would remain aloof on his private estate, sipping wine in the shade, managing his affairs from a distance.
So he wouldn't go to town himself?
Never. If he needed laborers, he would send his steward, his epitropos, down to the dirty, dusty marketplace to do the manual, grueling task of hiring.
But this master doesn't send his manager.
He goes himself.
He personally makes the trek from his vineyard to the public square.
And he does not just do it once.
Right. He goes at 6 in the morning, which is dawn.
Right.
And he goes back at 9 in the morning, then at noon, then at 3 in the afternoon, and finally at 5 in the afternoon.
The 11th hour.
When the sun is practically setting.
Yeah.
Hold on, let's put our business hats on for a second.
Okay, let's do it.
If I own this vineyard, and I know I have a certain amount of grapes to harvest before they rot,
Right.
and I know how many men it will take to accomplish that task, why on earth wouldn't I just hire everyone I needed at 6 in the morning?
From a purely agricultural business efficiency standpoint, it's terrible management.
Making 5 separate trips to town throughout the day, it seems like a massive waste of his own time.
From a strict business standpoint, you are 100% right. It makes zero sense.
Not at all.
But that is the precise point the parable is making. The master is not driven by agricultural efficiency.
What is he driven by?
He is driven by costly compassion.
Costly compassion.
Think about the men he is finding at 3 and 5 in the afternoon.
Who are they?
These are the men who have been passed over by every other employer in the village.
So they're the ones nobody else wanted.
Yes. They are likely the older men, the weaker men, the ones who do not look strong enough to carry a heavy basket of grapes in the scorching heat.
The bottom of the barrel, economically speaking.
The master sees them standing there exposed in their public humiliation, and he refuses to leave them in their misery.
Wow.
He repeatedly extends his hand, not to give them a humiliating handout of charity, but to bring them into his vineyard and give them the dignity of work.
He restores their purpose.
He does.
That completely reframes the narrative. We are not looking at a quirky hiring policy.
No.
We are looking at relentless, seeking compassion.
Relentless is a great word for it.
But to grasp the weight of this, we need to look at the setup. Because Jesus did not just tell this story into a vacuum.
Right. It wasn't just a general lesson on being a nice boss.
No, he told it as a direct, pointed theological response to a crisis unfolding right in front of him.
A very serious crisis.
It was a crisis of spiritual pride and ambition among his own closest followers.
The literary context here is vital. You cannot detach Matthew chapter 20 from what happens at the end of Matthew chapter 19.
They are intimately connected.
Very much so. Right before Jesus tells this parable, he has an encounter with a wealthy aristocrat we usually call the wealthy young ruler.
Right.
This young man approaches Jesus and asks a question that perfectly embodies that vending machine mentality, that covenant of works mindset we talked about earlier.
What does he ask?
He asks, "Teacher, what good deed must I do to have eternal life?"
He is bringing his ledger.
He absolutely is.
He wants to know the precise price tag so he can write the check out of his moral bank account.
He assumes there is a transaction to be made.
Yes.
He believes his meticulous outward conformity to the religious law has earned him a prominent seat in the kingdom.
But Jesus exposes the idolatry of his heart.
He does. Jesus tells him to sell all his possessions and give the money to the poor.
And the text says the young man walked away sorrowful because he had great wealth.
He could not abandon his earthly security and his legalistic credentials to cast himself entirely on the mercy of Christ.
So the wealthy young ruler walks away, and Jesus turns to his disciples and says how incredibly hard it is for a wealthy person to enter the kingdom.
Which completely shocked them.
Right. And this prompts Peter to speak up. Now, when you analyze Peter's reaction in the text, it is a bit cringeworthy.
It exposes a very dangerous attitude.
Yeah.
Peter watches the wealthy man walk away, and he essentially says to Jesus, "See, we have left everything and followed you. What then will we have?"
Well, what's in it for us?
Exactly. I mean, yes, Peter is looking at the sacrifices the disciples have made.
Leaving their fishing boats, their tax booths, their families.
And he is handing Jesus a bill.
Wow.
He expects a precise, calculated reward for his loyalty. It is a latent form of Pharisaism creeping right into the apostolic band.
It is the ultimate corporate seniority mindset.
Oh, that's a brilliant way to put it.
Think about someone who's been at a company for 20 years. They expect the corner office, the premium parking spot, and preferential treatment just because they have been clocking in the longest.
Yeah, the classic, "I've paid my dues."
Right. They completely ignore the grace of the CEO for hiring them in the first place, and they view their longevity as leverage to demand perks over the new hires.
Peter is acting like a senior vice president demanding his bonus structure be put in writing.
That's spot on. And Jesus deals with Peter very graciously at first, doesn't he?
He does. He confirms that there will indeed be a magnificent reward. He says they will sit on thrones, judging the tribes of Israel.
But then comes the warning.
Yes. He immediately follows that promise with a severe structural warning. Jesus constructs the parable as a Hebrew riddle.
A marshal, right?
A mashal, yes. A riddle of this type is a prophetic, metaphorical puzzle.
What's its purpose?
It is designed to hook the listener's attention, subvert their worldly prejudices, and force a moral confrontation.
And to make sure they do not miss the point, Jesus sandwiches the entire story of the compassionate employer between an identical, inverted phrase.
It's brilliant rhetoric.
He sets up this story in chapter 19, verse 30 by saying, "But many who are first will be last, and the last first."
Right.
Then he tells the whole parable, and he concludes it in chapter 20, verse 16 by saying, "So the last will be first, and the first last."
It is a structural bookend holding the entire narrative together.
That bookend shows that this parable is specifically designed to explain that revolutionary kingdom principle.
And this was a critical warning for true disciples.
Because they were about to face a big change.
A huge change. The early Jewish followers of Jesus needed to understand that their foundational role in the church was an act of pure, unmerited election.
Not a ground for commercial leverage.
No. A massive redemptive historical shift was about to happen. The gospel was going to go to the Gentiles.
To people who had no history with the law of Moses.
A no covenantal longevity. People who were showing up at the absolute 11th hour of redemptive history.
And Jesus is warning his early followers. Do not let your early calling make you arrogant.
Do not demand preferential treatment.
So to cure this mathematical seniority-based mindset, Jesus constructs a scenario within the story that forces this underlying ugly envy out into the open.
He engineers a confrontation.
He really does.
Mhm.
And he does this through the evening payout. Let's look at the mechanics of this because the rhetorical structure here is brilliant.
It really is a masterpiece of ancient rhetoric. The parable is built using a classical seven-stanza chiasm.
A chiasm, or ring composition.
Yes. It's a structural device that was over 1,000 years old in the Semitic tradition. It organizes a narrative symmetrically, like a mirror.
Like stepping downstairs and then walking back up them.
Precisely. Stanza 1 corresponds directly to stanza 7. Stanza 2 corresponds to stanza 6. Stanza 3 corresponds to stanza 5.
And right in the middle.
Stanza 4 acts as the central pivot where the climax and the main theological focus reside.
Let's walk through that symmetry for the listener, because it proves the master is not acting arbitrarily.
Okay, stanza 1 is the agreement made.
The master hires the first workers at dawn, and they formally agree on a standard denarius for the day's labor.
That perfectly balances stanza 7, which is the agreement kept.
Oh, okay.
At the end of the story, the master defends his actions by reminding the workers that he paid them the precise amount they agreed upon. He violated no legal contracts.
Right. And then stanza 2, the promise to give the mid-morning workers whatever is right.
That balances the grumbling over what is perceived as a lack of justice in stanza 6.
So it all points inward to stanza 4. The real action happens in the Senate.
The pivot.
Evening falls. The 11th hour concludes. And suddenly, for the first time in the whole story, the steward appears.
The epitropos.
Right. And the master issues a highly specific command regarding how the wages are to be paid.
He tells the steward, reverse the order.
Pay the men who are hired last first, and make the men who are hired at dawn wait at the back of the line.
Now that is provocative.
Wait a minute, though. I have a bone to pick with how this master handles things.
Go for it.
If he had just paid the 12-hour workers first, they would have gotten their denarius, they would have been thrilled, and they would have gone home to their families happy.
That's true.
By reversing the order and making them watch, is he not purposefully provoking a fight? Does he want a riot on his estate?
That is a very natural reaction to have, and it highlights the pedagogical masterstroke of the narrative.
A masterstroke.
Yes. If he wanted a smooth, conflict-free transaction, he would have paid the early workers first and sent them on their way.
But he doesn't.
He intentionally reverses the order. He wants the first hired workers to stand there and witness his lavish generosity to the 11th hour men.
He is purposely dragging their hidden mercenary motives out into the light.
He is setting a trap to test their hearts.
He is forcing them to confront the reality that his estate, his kingdom, operates on an economy that is completely alien to the transactional markets of the world.
He wants to see how they will react to unmerited grace being poured out on someone else while they are forced to watch.
And their reaction is incredibly revealing. It leads us right into the anatomy of what the text calls the evil eye, or the sickness of envy.
The master's setup works flawlessly.
By making his grace so public, he triggers a deeply ingrained sickness in those 12-hour workers.
It is a legalistic envy.
But what makes it so insidious is that it disguises itself as a cry for fairness.
Put yourself in the sandals of the men who have been working since 6 in the morning.
Okay, I'm there. I'm sweating, my muscles ache, I've borne the scorching heat of the day.
You watch the steward call up the 11th hour workers.
The guys who have only been in the vineyard for 60 minutes.
And the steward hands them a full denarius, a whole day's living wage.
The math of the legalists instantly kicks in. You can almost see the gears turning in their heads.
They start doing mental calculations immediately.
If the guy who worked 1 hour gets 1 denarius,
then I, who worked 12 hours, am about to get a massive payout.
I am going to get 12 denarii. I am going to be wealthy tonight. My family's going to eat like kings for a week.
But then they get to the front of the line, the steward reaches into the bag, and he drops a single denarius into their hand.
And the grumbling rebellion begins.
We have to read the text very carefully here. What is their actual complaint?
Do they say, you cheated us, you broke the contract?
They cannot say that because they received the precise amount they shook hands on at dawn.
Right.
Their furious, bitter complaint is, you have made them equal to us.
You have made them equal to us. That is a sticking point. They are offended by the equality.
The Greek word used here for their complaining egongeson implies a continuous, low-muttering rebellion.
Like under their breath.
Yes. It is not just a passing comment, it is an ongoing murmur of deep dissatisfaction, and the theological weight of that concept is massive.
Why is that?
In the Greek translation of the Old Testament, the Septuagint, that specific type of murmuring is the very word used repeatedly to describe the apostate Israelites complaining against Yahweh in the wilderness.
When they were wandering in the desert after the Exodus,
Yes.
God is giving them miracles, and they are complaining.
God was providing manna from heaven, rescuing them from slavery, giving them miraculous water from a rock.
And their response was constant, low-muttering rebellion.
Because they wanted to dictate the terms of his providence.
Oh, wow.
Matthew is intentionally drawing a direct line between the apostate wilderness generation and these 12-hour workers.
They are receiving the provision of the Master, but they are furious because they cannot control how he distributes his goodness to others.
That is chilling.
They are standing in the presence of overwhelming generosity, and all they feel is cheated because their rank was not recognized.
And the master's response to the leader of this grumbling faction is equally chilling.
He uses a specific title to address him.
Right. In many English translations, it just says, "Friend, I am doing you no wrong."
But it's not actually friend.
No, the original Greek term used heteros translates more accurately to Mr. or comrade.
Comrade.
In the classical Greco-Roman world, this was a polite but devastatingly distant form of address.
You would use it for a stranger.
Yes, someone whose name you did not know, or an associate of lower status.
It is not a warm, fuzzy greeting at all. It is the equivalent of saying, "Look, buddy."
If the master were embracing him as a beloved intimate, he would have used a word signifying true friendship.
Like philos.
Right. If you track how Matthew uses that specific distant word, heteros, in his gospel, it only appears 2 other times.
Really? Where?
Both are contexts of severe rebuke and betrayal.
Oh, man.
Jesus calls Judas Iscariot Mr. or comrade in the Garden of Gethsemane, right as Judas is betraying him with a kiss.
Wow. And the other time.
It is used in another parable to address the man who crashes a royal wedding banquet without wearing the proper wedding garment.
So by using this term, the master is addressing this grumbling worker as a rebellious stranger who is standing completely outside the warm circle of covenant love.
He says, "Mister, take what belongs to you and leave. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me?"
And then he asks the ultimate diagnostic question.
This is the sentence that pierces right through the vending machine mentality.
He asks, "Or is your eye evil because I am good?" Ophthalmos poneros.
Yes, ophthalmos poneros.
What does it mean to have an evil eye in this context? Because to modern ears, that sounds like a superstition, like someone putting a hex or a curse on you.
Right, but in the ancient Semitic idiom, the evil eye had nothing to do with magic or hexes.
Okay, what was it?
It was a well-known cultural phrase for a begrudging, jealous, stingy spirit. It traces all the way back to Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 9.
What happens in that passage?
In that passage, the Israelites are commanded to lend generously to their poor brothers, but they were warned not to harbor an evil eye toward a needy brother as the 7th year approaches.
The year when all debts were to be forgiven.
Yes, which might tempt them to withhold financial help.
Because they knew they would not get paid back, so they would get stingy.
Right. So an evil eye is a heart that resents generosity.
The master is looking at this worker and saying, "Are you enraged by my goodness? Does my compassion offend you?"
It brings to mind another famous story Jesus told.
The older brother in the story of the prodigal son.
It is the exact same spirit.
It is. The younger brother is a screw-up. He demands his inheritance, runs off, blows it all on wild living, ends up feeding pigs, and then comes crawling back home.
And the father runs out to meet him, throws a robe on him, puts a ring on his finger, and kills the fattened calf for a massive party.
What does the older brother do? He throws a tantrum.
He stands outside in the dark, refusing to go in, furious.
He says, "Look, these many years I have served you, and I never disobeyed your command, yet you never gave me a young goat."
He cannot tolerate the grace shown to his sibling because he views his own long obedience as a merit badge.
He thinks his track record should elevate him above the rest of the family.
That parallel is spot on. The legalists cannot tolerate grace that levels the playing field.
They demand horizontal equity.
They want to look side to side and know they are superior because they put in more hours.
When a sovereign master comes in and levels the field through unmerited generosity, the legalist's heart is exposed as being full of venom.
It's a hard truth.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? If we connect this to the bigger picture, the master defends his sovereign right to be good with his own wealth.
Which directly points to the staggering cost of salvation.
It illustrates the core mechanics of how justification actually works in the Christian framework.
This is where we move from the cultural setting into the deep theological reality of the gospel.
Notice a massive financial reality in the story. Grace is not free to the giver.
No, it is incredibly costly.
If the master is paying a full 12-hour wage to men who only picked grapes for 60 minutes, he is losing money on that transaction.
Math does not work in his favor.
He is taking a deliberate economic hit.
To elevate the 11th hour worker, the master has to absorb the financial loss out of his own pocket.
His estate's wealth is being drained to supply their need.
This is a beautiful picture of the Christological fulfillment of the parable.
Jesus Christ is the incarnate master of the house.
Think about the theological concept of the self-emptying of Christ described in Philippians chapter 2, kenosis.
Who, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant.
Christ did not remain aloof in the ivory palaces of heaven, demanding that fallen, broken humanity somehow find their way up to his vineyard on their own strength.
In his infinite condescension, he stepped down.
He entered the dusty, ruined, humiliating marketplace of our fallen world to seek and to save the helpless.
He does not just hire us. He pays the wage out of his own account.
For us, coming from a Protestant and Reformed perspective, this points right to the heart of substitutionary atonement.
Yes, the heart of the gospel.
For a holy and just God to declare a wicked, late-coming sinner righteous, a massive debt had to be paid. God cannot simply wave away sin. His justice must be satisfied.
So on the cross, Christ absorbed the complete, infinite bankruptcy of his people.
He took the scorching heat of divine wrath, the true burden of the day.
And in return, he credits believers with the full, undivided denarius of his perfect active obedience.
This aligns beautifully with the Westminster Confession of Faith. Chapter 11, paragraph 1 talks about justification.
What does it say?
It states that God freely justifies us, not for anything wrought in us or done by us, but for Christ's sake alone, by imputing the obedience and satisfaction of Christ unto us.
That word imputing is crucial.
It means crediting to our account.
There is no such thing as a partial justification in the kingdom of heaven.
No. You cannot be 70% justified or 99% justified.
You either possess the full righteousness of Christ or you possess nothing at all.
Think about the thief on the cross. He was saved in the literal 11th hour of his dying moments.
He had zero good works to bring to the ledger.
He had no time to get baptized, take communion, or give to the poor.
Yet, Jesus tells him, "Today you will be with me in paradise."
That thief received the very same undivided inheritance of eternal life as the Apostle Paul, who labored for decades, suffered beatings, and was martyred for the gospel.
Both stand before the throne of God clothed in the identical, perfect righteousness of Jesus Christ.
Now, I have a genuine question here, because whenever you present this kind of radical leveling grace, the natural human reaction is to panic about morality.
Oh, sure. I hear this pushback all the time.
If the wage, the denarius of salvation and justification, is 100% the same for the guy who works 1 hour and the guy who works 12, what is the motivation to work 12 hours?
Right. Why not just live however you want, sow your wild oats, enjoy a life of rebellion, and then wait until 5 in the afternoon to believe and get the same reward?
It is the classic objection to grace, and it reveals how ingrained our legalism is.
Well, let's look back at the men in the parable. The 11th hour workers were not holding out on purpose.
When the master asks them why they are standing there, they do not say, "We were sleeping in because we knew you would pay us a full day's wage for 1 hour of work."
They say, "Because no one has hired us."
They were desperate, anxious, and unchosen. It was a day of torment for them. They were not gaming the system.
They were suffering in the marketplace, terrified of starving.
Second, the objection assumes that working in the master's vineyard is a punishment.
A terrible burden that you want to avoid as long as possible.
If you think the world's marketplace, a place of spiritual starvation, exposure, and humiliation, is better than being in the safety and provision of the master's vineyard,
then your heart has not been changed.
you view obedience as a miserable chore rather than a joyful privilege.
That is a staggering paradigm shift. Being brought in early is not a burden. It is a privilege of protection.
Being brought into the vineyard early in life spares you from the ravages of sin, the wreckage of rebellion, and the psychic torment of spiritual unemployment.
When we understand that the master absorbs the costs completely, it totally dismantles the theological errors that have turned faith into a business transaction.
Let's focus on smashing that modern spiritual mercantilism, because this is not just an ancient problem. It plagues the church today.
The source material aggressively deconstructs systems that rely on what it calls flatline spiritual mercantilism.
The essays we are looking at today make a sharp critique of formal theological systems that rely on merit.
Our sources take aim at, for example, the Roman Catholic dogma of congruent merit, meritum dit congruo.
The authors argue this is the idea that while man cannot earn initial salvation, he can perform works that make it fitting or congruent for God to reward him with an increase of grace.
The sources argue this turns the relationship back into a ledger.
It is the vending machine again, just with a theological label on it.
The authors also point out similar transactional logic in the Arminian system of conditional election.
The sources critique that system for teaching that God looks down the corridor of time, foresees who will have faith and cooperate with his grace, and then casts them based on that foreseen human action.
According to our source material, both of these systems, whether they intend to or not, reduce the sovereign God to a reactor.
They make him a debtor who is bound to pay man for his cooperation.
The authors argue this parable puts a massive roadblock in front of those ideas.
The master's choice to hire the 11th hour workers was not based on their productivity.
It was monergistic.
Meaning it was entirely the work of the master, unconditioned by human labor.
If our works do not condition God's grace, and we do not labor to earn the denarius, since Christ's righteousness is already fully credited to us, what is the point of the law? Why strive for holiness?
This brings up a concept in theology called the third use of the law, the usus normativus.
The Reformers understood that while the law cannot save us, it still functions as a guide for the Christian life.
The motivation changes completely. We do not work in the heat of the day to earn our salvation.
We labor out of breathtaking gratitude.
Our obedience is not a commercial transaction designed to manipulate God into giving us better circumstances.
It is a joyful, lifelong sacrifice of praise to a master who rescued us from the darkness.
Think of it like this. Imagine you are drowning in a freezing, rushing river.
Okay.
The water is icy, you have no strength left, your lungs are burning, and you are going under for the last time.
A terrifying situation.
Suddenly, someone dives into the icy water, risks their own life, grabs you by the collar, and drags you to the shore. They perform CPR and save your life.
Wow.
The next week, you do not take that person out to a nice steak dinner to pay them back for your life.
That would be insulting. You can never put a price tag on what they did.
You take them to dinner out of overwhelming, joyful thankfulness. You want to honor them because of what they freely gave you.
That illustration perfectly captures the mechanism of the theology.
The source material argues that this stands as a stark rebuke to so many modern church movements.
The authors critique the prosperity gospel, pointing out that it explicitly turns faith into a cosmic slot machine.
Give this amount of seed money, and God will multiply it and give you earthly wealth and perfect health.
Our sources argue that is the complete opposite of the gospel.
The essays also critique seeker-sensitive models that try to motivate people through therapeutic self-improvement.
Treating Jesus like a life coach, whose job is to help you achieve your personal goals.
According to the source material, all of those systems cater to the 12-hour worker's mindset.
They appeal to the human ego. They promise a return on investment.
But the kingdom of heaven operates on the economy of grace, where the last shall be first and the first shall be last.
We are coming to the end of our deep dive into these texts, and we have to talk about the outro of this story because it is fascinating.
Jesus builds this incredible narrative tension. He brings it to a dramatic climax with the master asking, "Is your eye evil because I am good?"
And then the story just abruptly ends.
The camera cuts to black. We never find out what happened next.
The unresolved drama is entirely intentional. The curtain is left open.
We do not know if that grumbling 12-hour worker dropped his coin in the dust and wept in repentance,
Realizing the depth of his own self-righteous pride.
or if he clutched his denarius, stormed down into the night cursing the master's goodness, determined to find another landlord who would respect his sweat equity.
Why do you think Jesus left it open like that?
The parable is a mirror for the listener. Jesus places every single person hearing his voice directly onto the stage.
You are standing at that pay table.
You are forced to finish the drama in the quiet chambers of your own conscience.
When you see God bless someone else, someone you think is less deserving, someone who has not put in the hours you have. How do you react?
Does it expose an evil eye of envy? Do you shake your fist at the sovereign king of the universe, demanding a covenant of works?
If God gave us strict mathematical justice, we would not receive a denarius.
We would receive condemnation.
That is a heavy, necessary truth to sit with.
It really is.
As we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over. Picture the scene later that night. The 11th hour worker and the 12-hour worker are both walking home in the dark to their families.
They reach into their pockets.
They each pull out the very same coin, 1 denarius.
But their experience of looking at that coin is entirely, fundamentally different.
The 12-hour worker looks at it and sees a calculated wage.
He sees an insufficient payout for his bleeding hands and his sunburned back, and his heart is full of bitterness.
But the 11th hour worker looks at that same coin and he sees a miracle.
He sees the staggering, unmerited compassion of a master who saved his family from starvation when he had absolutely nothing to offer.
2 men, identical gifts, entirely different hearts.
How do you view what you have been given?
Are you clutching a ledger, waiting for your receipt from the cosmic vending machine?
Or are you staring at the coin of grace in absolute wonder?
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Let us silence our murmuring tongues, drop our ledgers of human performance, and marvel at the sovereign grace of the compassionate employer.